There's this video out about with Shannon Sharp interviewing this black comedian Crawford. You guys know him. I forget what they call him, but he's a big old fella. And he was telling a story about how he learned, or he thought that his real father was a gay man or a bisexual man. And he actually interacted with the man and spoke with him, found him. And the man said, I went away to college as a virgin and I came back as a virgin and your mother was pregnant. You know, at that point, we have to begin to recognize that even our stars, even the men who are, successful, are dealing with the fact that they have mothers who didn't do the one job that they were supposed to do. And that is match the baby with the baby daddy. There was a time when, men had multiple kids. And these days, kids have multiple fathers. And this is not something that's germane to the black community. I was looking at another video where Vanilla Ice, the rapper from way back in the day, with the song Ice Ice Baby, was being interviewed, and he said that his mother had multiple children by multiple men, and she didn't even know who the father was. And you could hear in his voice that it bothered him, even though verbally he was saying, it doesn't bother me, my mom is my mom. And I find it interesting that Lavelle Crawford said the same thing, that's still my mom. And what you men do is you allow these women to get away with really one of the most egregious things that any person can do, and that's take your identity away from you. And if you don't believe me, those of you guys who are foundational black American and you were brought to this country or your ancestors were brought to this country in chains, many of you pine away and you harbor ill will and bad feelings towards those who participated in the transatlantic slave trade because they took your identity away from you. So look how serious that is. You are a man, a child, a woman who doesn't know who half of your ancestry is. You don't know who your father is because your mother didn't think that that man was important enough to even get his full name or his real name. This is how little concern that this woman had for you. And yet society says you are supposed to forgive her because, oh, well, that's your mother. As if being a mother does not, or as being a mother absolves you from being a horribly irresponsible human being. Fellas, let me explain something to you, man. Your children, your seed, is the most important thing that you produce in this world. It's not the art that you produce. It's not the buildings that you create. It's not the amount of money you make. It's not the amount of people who like you. It is your legacy. Your biological legacy. The only thing that your ancestors wanted you to do in your time period on this planet was reproduce life successfully. And you have to begin to see your progeny as worth an infinite amount of wealth to you. Obviously, these children mean nothing to their mothers other than merely being possessions. And of course, we don't want to put all women in the same category, but my gosh, when you have a third of the men in the United States paying for children who they don't know are not biologically theirs, that lets you know that there are a lot of women out there who are lying and who have a total disregard for fatherhood and manhood. And you wonder why there are so many young men who grow up and don't feel the need to be a father is important. Because their mothers didn't make them being a father important, because they didn't bother introducing these men to their own fathers. And so you wonder why men these days are so lackadaisical about fatherhood. But fellas, when you begin to value your seed, the minute you find out that a woman may be pregnant for you, your job is to hound her into the ground. Your job is to go to your local legal representative and file the paperwork you need to file and have her served immediately, even before the child is born, because she will run off with your child. And go find somebody who will be good for her. She will go find herself somebody who will be a provider, a simp, if you will, who will help her take care of that child. Or some poor man that she can lie to and tell him this is his child and hopefully evoke some sort of emotional response and attachment. And therefore, this man will feel obligated emotionally to take care of this child. And once they get him in, then some aspects of our society will say, well, that's still your child. Even though that relationship was predicated on a lie by a woman who knew that that man wasn't her child. And any relationship that's predicated on a lie is destined for failure. It's destined for destruction, because it was egregious at its inception. So what you have to do, fellas, and this is something odd, you have to be proactive. You have to hunt these women down. Let me give you a scenario. A woman says she might be pregnant for you. You go ahead and file that paperwork on her right now. I don't care if she's 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever pregnant she is. Why? Because you can't leave it to her to do the right thing. She's going to look for a better option. If you know that she's dating multiple men, then you want to get it out the way early on and know either I am or I am not the father. You don't want to sit around 4 years later and find out that your child's mother has been extracting resources from some other man because he's able to pay more than you. And when he runs out of resources, or when he discovers that he's not the father, then she comes running to you. So you want to end it early. I would even suggest men who are married go ahead and get the DNA test at this point. Because look at the destruction that you're causing men especially. Not just women, but men especially, because these are the men that are supposed to be the fathers of the next generation and the future generations. And if you're tilling them, if you're treating them as though fatherhood is irrelevant and is nothing, then what do you expect? And this falls squarely on the shoulders of women. It is your job to know who you let in and out of your vagina. They have more security on an apartment in the ghetto. At least you got to have some sort of code to get in there. A lot of you ladies, your vagina is just open to the public. Anybody can step in and step out at will. And if you're going to be that irresponsible with it, we're going to have to treat you like the children that you're behaving like. Because these are not white lies you're telling, ladies. These are life lies you're telling. And even though you don't feel that that man is deserving of being a father, that is not your responsibility to make that determination. Your job is to let that man know that he is the father, or for some of you, he may be one of the fathers, potential fathers, and let them deal with it. Not for you to pick and choose which man you want to be the daddy based on what kind of car he drives, how much money you think you can extract out of him for diapers, milk, and whatever, and how much manipulation you can place upon his shoulders to give you the things you want via guilt and shame. Because at this point, you ladies are destroying lives. There's a reason why societies throughout history have limited the sexual interaction of women. I know y'all don't want to hear that. Somebody type toxic masculinity in the chat room. Somebody type toxic masculinity in the chat room. I know. You don't like the fact that women are oppressed. But anytime you start allowing women just to breed indiscriminately and have sex with whoever they want to, and I'm not even talking about the law. We've gotten to the point, we don't even have shame and guilt. Somebody type, bring shame and guilt back in the chat room. There is no shame. These women are walking around here having sex with this man and putting the baby on another man. There was a movement a few years ago where women would say, well, I'm just going to have multiple baby daddies because I can get more money from a man who only has one child for me than a man who has 4 children for me. Look at the exploitation that women are doing of the system and society, this open society that we have. And it's all fun and games till your son turns 23, 24 years old and he wants to know where his daddy is. Or when your son turns 45 or 50 years old and he takes a DNA test to check his ancestry and to come to find out the daddy ain't the real daddy. And so now he's looking at you. And guess what you ladies start doing when you get found out? Across the board, what do the ladies start doing? What do you low-life mothers who can't even match the daddy with the baby, what do you start doing? You start crying. Ooh, woe is me. Oh, woe is me. Somebody type, I did the best I could in the chat room. Somebody type, I did the best I could in the chat room. Isn't that what they say? Somebody type, I'm a victim in the chat room. I did the best I could. Isn't that what they say? They start crying, and that automatically acts as a shield to shield them from the repercussions and the shame and the guilt that they should be feeling. They flip the script. You immediately become the bully because you calling them out for their whorish behavior. And then guess what? When you do try to reprimand her, what do people around you say? Well, that's still your mama. Meaning that you are supposed to show her respect even in her dysfunction, her disingenuousness, and her lies. Because now you've created a relationship, fellas, and women who've been victim of this. You've created a relationship with a man who has no biological affinity to you. And that may be all well and great. But you've also created a relationship with his family members, people who aren't related to you. So the lies just cascade down and down and down and over again. And Vanilla Ice and Lavelle Crumpton, they're not the only people that are dealing with this. Some lying mother who didn't have the integrity to match the baby with the baby daddy. You got one job, ladies. Shout out to everybody in the chat room. Somebody type one job in the chat room. Somebody give me a super chat and say one job. You got one job, ladies. And that is to match your baby with the right baby daddy. And many of you all fail on that. And it's shameful. And nobody can call you out. Why? Because that's still your mama. And I'm talking about white women, black women, Latino women. I'm damn sure talking about you Nigerians over there, and especially you Jamaicans. If they gave a test to the women in Jamaica, and I think it was nearly 90%. Was it 90%? Or at least it was over 50% of those men were taking care of kids that weren't even theirs. And if they start doing DNA tests in Jamaica, it's going to be horrible. And I'm absolutely certain that we have the same issue down in South America and Central America. They probably don't have that issue in Saudi Arabia, though. I'm sure they don't have it in Afghanistan, do they? Heck to the no, they don't have those issues over there because they have a society that regulates women's sexuality. Somebody type toxic masculinity in the chat room. You want better fathers? You want better fathers? Why don't you ladies start matching the fathers of the children with their biological fathers and the biological children? Why don't you start doing that? How about you take some responsibility and some accountability for what you do with your private parts? You got grown men in the public eye, like Lavelle Crump and Vanilla Ice, and I forget his name, I think it's Winkleman or something like that. These are stars. Some of the most popular men in America and maybe in the world, arguably. And they're dealing with the same thing. So imagine what the average fellas is dealing with. This world is not built for your convenience, ladies. Just because you don't like the biological father of your child doesn't mean you get to go out and pick a new man who's going to put more money in your pocket. That baby is not a cash cow. That baby is not for profit. See, you playing with God's work at this point. And you wonder why many of you all are so cursed. You know what? Your generational curses start between your legs. What goes in and what comes out. That is typically the number one source of your generational curse. You want to stop all those curses that you're dealing with? All those problems that you're dealing with? Do a better job in monitoring who you let inside your body. That'll stop about 99% of them right there. You need a stern talking to, ladies, and I'm talking to all y'all. Black women, white women, Hispanic women. You're off the chain, and you're running around here like little nasty dogs with their little vagina part hanging out the back and their little saggy breasts. And any old dog in the street can hit them. You don't know who that child belongs to. That's you. Next time you see one of them little dogs right there with scraping their butt along the grass, trying to cool themselves off, that's you. I don't care how much makeup you put on, how you dress it up. I don't care how you talk about how you wanted a child and all that. If you don't know who your child's father is, then you have failed at motherhood. Off top. Somebody type off top in the chat room. You have failed. Shout out to everybody who's contributed to the super chat. Off top, you failed. You a failure. You have fallen short. You have come up snake eyes. You ain't hitting on nothing. You are a failure. You are a loser as a mother. And you got everything that's coming back to you from your children. Because at some point, based on the technology that we have today, it is more likely than not that a child who has even an inkling of a notion that they've been lied to about who their paternal side is, they're going to go down to that local CVS, Walgreens, Walmart drugstore, and they're going to get that $99 DNA test and they're going to take it. And they're going to come back and they're going to sit down with you after they get that phone call and they're going to say, Mom, we need to have a conversation. And then you're going to break out crying. Oh, I did the best I could. And you'll be lying through your teeth. Nobody believes you, ladies. We know what you've been doing. And for you men out there, man, like I said, don't let these women get away with that, man. If you find yourself in a situation where you're taking care of a child and you come to learn that that child is not yours, there's no nobility in taking care of a child that you were lied to about who is yours. Because what that means is you've stolen another man's seeds. And you're not going to be blessed with that. You're not going to be blessed behind that. You just basically going to cheat your own legacy because You are now taking care of somebody else's child, and what you're also doing is cheating that other man from the opportunity to raise his own biological seed, to see the face of his grandfather and his grandmother and his brothers and his fathers and his sisters and